Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and am I going to figure out autofocus off on my camera first, or is the game industry going to make optimized PC ports? Yeah, that's what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to start this video off with a little bit of positivity, okay? Look, back in the days of early PC gaming, there were some really bad PC ports, okay? Not early PC gaming, but 2007, 2008 was like the dark ages. Quite literally, games like Saints Row 2, Grand Theft Auto 4, Double Agent, all released, and it really was a time where it felt like they took a bunch of homeless people off the street, put a gun to their head, and told them, develop a PC game, port our slop over to the computers. They charge you full price, and they drop that crap on your system, expecting you to actually enjoy the slop you are given. Now, I think if you're in the PC world, all right, which, by the way, is becoming a pretty popular way to game now. It used to be that only nerds had gaming computers, but nowadays, hey, every ordinary gamer has one. Everyone's grandmother is looking into a gaming computer to play whatever they want. It is a trendy thing, and I don't think game developers and publishers can ignore the economic benefit that PC gaming brings alongside selling games on a console. But see, I'm somebody that when I want to play video games, and I do play a lot of them, I play them primarily on the PlayStation, because buying a PC game is kind of like playing Russian roulette. You never know when the actual gun is going to go off, okay? You might one day get an actual optimized game, or most times you might just experience the sweet bliss of an end. But ladies and gentlemen, the catalyst for today's actual video is one game known as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I don't want to pretend that this game is a bad game. This is not a review of the game. Let me just give you an example. I like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think it's a pretty expansive, huge game that absolutely is a pretty solid entry in this Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. I've already played this game on the PS5, but when I played it on the PS5, I played it on performance mode, which meant that you run the game at 60 frames with the obvious caveat that the game looks like you have fucking cataracts, okay? The resolution is low because that's what the game needs to do to maintain 60 frames per second. Now, in reality, this is a PC game that is now released with some PC capabilities. So basically, with the PC version, what it does is if you have the hardware, you can run games at a high enough frame rate, at a high enough resolution, so you don't have to compromise with console stuff. And that is the reason why I ended up getting it. I like supporting games that are especially single-player focused because I think that's important for the industry. Now, this game is also 30% off right now, 65 Canadian dollars. So I want to also mention that because this is not free. I did not get a review code. I take the same financial hit that every single gamer in my audience takes, especially when I cover a video game, because I think that's probably the most ethical way to do it. So this game ends up dropping, and immediately I'm on YouTube. I'm like looking up people talking about, oh, this is a great PC port. Oh, this is awesome. I feel like I live in an alternate fucking dimension because there are tons of people, me included, that are actually complaining that this is not a good PC port. So one user writes in, the PC port is a hot mess. What took them so long to port this thing to PC? It's literally horrible. Crashed 3 times already, textures won't load properly, LODs are completely messed up, combat sometimes won't start even if you're standing in front of guys. No widescreen support, no mouse cursor on the main menu, what the fuck? That's actually true, by the way. Yes, this is a PC game where the mouse does not show up on the main menu, but somehow it's a amazing PC port. Great job. The piece de resistance, if you will. Cutscenes frequently just soft lock the game. Skipping cutscenes also soft locks and crashes the game. TLDR, one of the worst ports on the PC I've ever seen, even by Square's standards. So I want to start off by mentioning one of the obvious concerns that I've had. So as I'm playing this game, I've noticed that on my system, which is no slouch whatsoever, the game has stuttering problems. In fact, the frame rate is kind of all over the place. Now, when we talk about like frame rate issues on games like PCs, this is a first and foremost Unreal Engine 4 game. This is not Unreal Engine 5, which has its own host of issues. Unreal Engine 4 is a pretty aging engine, and this version of Unreal Engine 4 for this game is, I believe, pretty relatively customized with assistance from Epic and probably even assistance from PlayStation, especially since they, I believe, helped out with the entire trilogy so far on their systems. This is a customized version of the engine. This version of the game was supposed to fix up things like lighting, for instance, on the actual console to make it look a little bit better on the PC. And in some cases, it does look better overall. Like there are scenes I remember in this game so far that just do look better than what I remembered on the PS5, even in quality mode. So yes, in that regard, there are some actual enhancements. But that's where it kind of ends. So this version of the game basically has what I would consider to be some serious stuttering issues. Now, when you start up this game on PC, it does do shader pre-calculation. And the thing about it is, when you're on a console, this step is unneeded because consoles are the same hardware no matter what box you buy. So the shaders are all calculated and do ship with the actual game on the disc. With the PC, it's different. Shaders are effectively tiny little programs that all have to be basically compiled because of different pieces of hardware. So you have a different piece of hardware in your system than I do. So generally, when we fire up a game, most games that run on these engines, in fact, most games in general, will just calculate all of their shaders in the beginning, and it'll take somewhere around like 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. But once that step is done, you can basically play the game all the way through without an actual stutter. If you don't do this, anytime you come across something new in a video game, whether it be a new effect, a new shader to calculate, you will notice something known as shader pre-compilation stutter. And sites like Digital Foundry, a lot of performance channels have covered this kind of stuff, where no matter how good your hardware is, you will encounter stutter. So while that aspect seemingly is alleviated here, it really seems like this game has a real issue with things like traversal stutter, with just stutter in general. I mean, even walking around opening cities like Calm, or just any place in general, you'll notice that the game's frame rate will sometimes jump from 100 frames all the way down to like 80, 70, 60 frames at times. And again, it's not just this hardware on this computer. I ran this on the Muda box in my system downstairs, which is a totally different set of hardware, AMD card, Intel processor. What I've got on my gaming rig is an AMD processor, NVIDIA card. And even despite the varying hardware differences, I still come across the same type of stuttering no matter what. And I was kind of looking forward to this because I had noticed that this game was Steam Deck verified. They showed a little clip where in the opening section, they were running around and playing the game just fine. However, I feel like the person that Steam Deck verified this might actually have visual issues, like might have vision problems. Because playing the game on the Steam Deck, even in the opening section, will still have the same level of stutter present. Traversal issues, the game will lurch around in its frames. So yes, unless you're comfortable with actual stuttering no matter what, then I guess it's technically playable. But I am not a fan of this kind of bullshit at all. I think if you buy a game for full price on the PC, developers should put the effort in to make the game as good as the console version, okay? Anything less should not be fucking tolerated, okay? You guys pay premium top dollar to play video games. You pay the same money a console person does. Why are you not actually treated the same? So it's not even just the stuttering that's an actual issue. The features that this game provides are limited as well. For instance, it basically gives you only one actual real upscaler, okay? Or two, really. It gives you TAA, which you shouldn't use in video games unless you want blurry, smeary messes, okay? It gives you TAAU, which is like Epic's version of like upscaling, which does a okay job. And then it only gives you DLSS. Now, again, I thought this was an NVIDIA-sponsored game, but it isn't, because NVIDIA hasn't even released drivers for this game yet, which is really shocking because this is Final Fantasy VII. It's not a small game, so clearly they threw in DLSS, and it wasn't even the most updated version of DLSS, okay? I use a DLSS swapping tool, and I found out this was actually a lower version than like whatever it was, like the Indiana Jones game that came out just a while ago. So it is a version of DLSS that is not even the most updated, and it doesn't even come with extra features like frame generation if you wanted to. And looking into the system specifications for this, a lot of people were complaining that they weren't able to run this on their GTX 1080s because I guess it needs a ray tracing card, even though the game does not do ray tracing, doesn't do path tracing, doesn't do frame generation. In fact, it only has DLSS, which doesn't even have things like AMD FSR or Intel XeSS, because fuck it, why would gamers need options, right? You're only selling a premium PC version of the game. And then there was the creepypasta that occurred too. So for instance, for anybody that doesn't know, this game has some real issues that go beyond stuttering. For instance, randomly as I'm playing the game, if I go into the pause menu, which opens up a different location for the main characters to basically stand in the UI, the game will just go to a black screen sometimes. It'll just crash, things will stop working. And I was wondering, why the fuck is that even happening? Now, when you look up soft lock, you will literally find out moments where people complain about this moment, like broken sequences as soft lock the game and everything stays still, not allowing you to move or exit. You are standing in front of guys. No widescreen support, no mouse cursor in main menu. Cutscenes frequently just soft lock the game. Yeah, this is a real issue the game has, and I haven't seen it mentioned by any other reviewer, whether they're on YouTube or in the gaming publication. It's like, did you guys get a different build of the game? Like, I have footage of this literally happening multiple times. The animation will just freeze where it's at, the game will just stop, and you have to Alt F4 and restart the game. Now, thankfully, autosaves are pretty frequent, so you can just get back to where you're at. But nobody at Square tests this at all, because it happens not just for me, but for other people in this entire list. And you might be saying, get a better computer, Muda. That doesn't really solve anything, okay? That doesn't really answer the question. It's not just me having this issue, it's other gamers as well. So again, may I ask you, did they quality test this game? And again, this is just a serious issue to have. Literally, I was taking a fat dump, came back, and I saw my character literally just soft lock. And this happened literally every hour that I played the game, to the point where Alt F4s became a hotkey on my controller and just launching the game again. It is actually not okay. The fact that people will defend this, and I know people will defend this in the comment section for this video, or any comment section in general, is just a state of affairs that shows how bad dick sucking in the community is getting, okay? I know there's people out there, okay, I can smell the sweaty fuck in front of Square Enix's office with the katana in hand, looking at me and going, leave the multi-billion-dollar company alone. You know, even looking at things like widescreen support, which this game does support widescreen, but a lot of PC games come with a lot of PCs now allow you to use ultra-wide monitors, or in my case, a super ultra-wide monitor. So Square Enix has not even decided to put that into the game. And generally speaking, when you play it on my monitor, if you actually want to see how I play with it, it's a 16:9 display, but you see these big-ass black bars. Now, Square Enix could obviously not be fucked to fix this. It took an independent person 24 hours, less than 24 hours, to send out a patch that allowed them to do exactly what Square Enix as a multi-billion-dollar company should have done. The game works at 32:9, it plays relatively well, and aside from some minor UI issues, I would recommend this for people that have a super ultra-wide monitor, okay? It's a very immersive way to play the game. Why didn't Square Enix do this to begin with? I don't know. I get it. It's a big AAA company, and they probably need to make sure this is perfect. But also, I don't care. It's a AAA company that's charging AAA prices for a video game on the PC. If you want to earn the respect of PC gamers, you should probably support the features that PCs provide that consoles simply do not. And there's just no excuse for it. I'm sick and tired of pretending that people should just let this happen. Like, game companies can release these dog shit PC ports, and just because somebody's low expectations of the game basically touching 60 frames per second, yeah, it might stutter like a bitch every once in a while. Or, yeah, I'm playing the game at 720p and, you know, things look sharp enough. These are not standards we should be supporting, okay? As simple as that. These games should drop day one on PCs instead of being minimal viable product that simply exists just to throw onto the storefront, and maybe a week down the road, a month down the road, Square Enix could fix this. I refuse to believe the company has not known that these issues existed in the game before they launched it, okay? Especially things like the game literally soft locking on. Forget the performance and stuttering. When the game forces me to Alt F4 and relaunch, that is an issue that if not only me, other people are having. Square should have known this ahead of time anyways. How they released this game in this state is actually shocking. And the fact that, again, it comes out and people are like, just wait a month for the patches. You shouldn't have to wait at all for the patches. These games should work out of the box. Day one, especially if you're paying. You're not getting these for free. These are actual paid games. But look, aside from this one game right over here, right, people have complained about it, and obviously it's a pretty substantial issue. But like, look, there's been bad PC ports, and obviously is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at the same level as like Saints Row 2 and Grand Theft Auto 4? No, it's not like as bad as them. But it's not acceptable to pay $60 for a game that is just not in a proper functioning spot right now. And like I said, I ran this on different sets of hardware. There's other games like Marvel Rivals, which have their own issues with things like memory dumps. I mean, I literally saw a video of like Charlie complaining about this game crashing. And you go to their website and you look at why these crashes could occur. And sometimes if you have things like an Intel 13th or 14th generation CPU, which I actually have in one of my rigs, the fact that people have to go through things like downloading Intel XTU, going through this entire process, this is not something many gamers do. You'd be surprised how little most PC gamers actually open the graphics settings on the PC games that they play. Sometimes all they do is just go into a game, hit new game, and play with whatever default settings the game gives them. It's wild, okay? PC gaming is in a weird spot where it's like it's profitable, gaming companies need to focus on it, but it almost feels like, at least in terms of Japanese companies, because American companies generally do a better job supporting PC games, Japanese companies just do not do that great of a job. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because PCs aren't as prevalent over there, which is bullshit, because there's a lot of Japanese gamers that I know personally that also game exclusively on PC. It is literally the weirdest cultural shift that's happening on that side of the world. You know, in comparison, it's one of those things where even recently Assassin's Creed Shadows just gave its actual PC specifications. And you want to know something wild about it too? This is actually, from what I've seen, how you should do a PC game. So Assassin's Creed Shadows looks better than FF7 Rebirth, easily, okay, just technically speaking. Forget about the art style, that can be subjective. Just technically speaking, it's the better game, both in technical features and probably in performance. So if you go to their actual PC spec sheet, if you're a PC gamer, you know this sheet by your heart, okay? Generally speaking, this will give you an idea of what hardware you need to reach a resolution or frame rate. So for minimum frames at 1080p at 30 frames per second, you can run this bitch on a 1070 with 8 gigs of VRAM. You can run this on a Core i7-8700K, which at this moment in time is probably not the best way to play the game, but they have absolutely optimized this game for a set of hardware that is, again, even more minimum than FF7 Rebirth. And what's interesting about it too is this comes with selective ray tracing, meaning the developers for Assassin's Creed have literally said, if you have a GPU that doesn't support things like hardware ray tracing, which anything pre-RTX does not, we have developed our own solution to allow competent, yet older GPUs to run Assassin's Creed Shadows. The game will use a proprietary software-based ray tracing approach developed specifically for that. So on one hand, you've got a PC developer who is developing a game, and even if you can't have hardware ray tracing, they are writing code to give you software ray tracing for cards that are definitely more than 8 years old at this point. So again, fucking two extremes. You know, as much shit as people give Ubisoft or the Assassin's Creed team, this is actually good to see, compared to the dog shit I was playing around with earlier. You know, when it came to the only upscaling option, when it came to his Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I had to, and by the way, this is completely independent, I literally, because Cyberpunk 2077 just updated, I grabbed its new DLSS 4, threw it into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because it came with an older version of DLSS, and using NVIDIA Profile Inspector, forced it to run with the new Transformer model, and it actually gave maybe slightly better performance, but it fixed up, some of the issues that came with DLSS upscaling. I don't have an issue with things like upscaling or even AI frames, provided that they more benefit gamers who have older hardware anyways. If you have something like a 4090, you probably should not be using frame generation to reach whatever recommended or minimum frame rate the game publishers or developer wants you to have. Because if the developer tells you you need upscaling or frame generation, that sounds to me like an unoptimized, buggy game. You know, when a game like Alan Wake 2 dropped, it literally had a spec sheet where DLSS was factored into every single fucking option. Meaning that, yes, no matter what, they had literally designed this game with upscaling in mind. Now, it's always wild to me when a piece of software is designed to breathe life into older cards is now used in factoring, your game's performance. That just shows me you probably haven't thought the performance all the way through, and you probably haven't optimized your game all the way through if you want us to use, upscaling technology to basically reach these minimum, frame requirements. And the minimum requirements are things like 60 FPS or 30 FPS in some cases. A RTX 2060 is not a slouch of a card, so in a game that, yes, albeit has ray tracing kind of somehow forced into it, should not require you to have a 2060 to run Alan Wake 2 at low 1080p at 30 frames per second. Dog, you got to get your shit together at that point if you need, if that's all you can muster out of a 2060. Even games like Doom that literally will be like 1080p, 60 frames, low settings, okay? It just came out, by the way, just the spec sheet. You need a ray tracing capable GPU with, 8 gigabytes or dedicated VRAM or better. Examples, 2060 or better. And of course, the Ultra 4K, which requires a 4080 or better, okay? 32 gigs of system memory at the absolute minimum for the recommended spec. Now, obviously, they don't mention things like upscaling over here, so I just imagine it probably is optimized and it's actually pushing actual 4K without any real upscaling. But to be fair, I would actually be expecting a lot out of any game developer to give an optimized game at this point. But again, to go back to this Final Fantasy Rebirth nonsense that I bought, no matter what you do, it is a ill-performing PC port, and it's just another sign of real terrible optimization on any front. And I don't care what any reviewer says, this is literally based on my personal experience with the game. And I want to speak for the other people in the Steam discussion forums and the people talking about this PC port's quality. Because all I've been hearing about it is it's a perfect PC port. But in reality, I feel like the issues that are prevalent are not just issues in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. These are issues that I've seen with other, Unreal Engine specific games too. Even games like Unreal Engine that use Unreal Engine 5. You've probably heard the term, stutter struggle from the guys over at Digital Foundry, and it's no joke. All right, with a lot of these new engines and a lot of these new graphical features, it really feels like stuttering performance problems have become a serious concern, especially with PC games moving forward, right? And, it used to be one thing where if you wanted to run a game at ultra settings, you definitely needed the top of the line hardware. But even running games at higher settings or medium settings or sometimes even lower settings, it's hard to really identify what the real visual change is. And sometimes you can't even confirm if something is working well in a game anyways. There's memory leaks, there's issues to worry about. I mean, just the raw instance of a stutter in a video game seems so fucking unavoidable, and we've been dealing with this shit for well over 2 years at this point, at least from my experience. And it's one of the things that has soured me so much on PC games, where it's yes, I want to be a PC gamer, but when I got to deal with this kind of nonsense, it just blows my mind. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. Wanted to talk about this because I really do feel like there is a serious PC unoptimized mess problem going on right now. And while Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is just my personal battle that I had today, I think this is basically the culmination of something that's been brewing in me for a while, okay? I have had this issue with games like Dead Space. I've had this issues with games like Silent Hill 2 on the PC. And I've had this issue now with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And again, I don't see this problem getting any better. In fact, I actually see it just getting worse the more games push these newer ray tracing, path tracing, upscaling technologies, and the less certain developers, not all, but some developers have with just optimizing their games or making sure the products they release on the PC actually match some form of quality assurance. Anyways, I am out.